सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम अपने परवरदिगार जलील शान के नाम की तस्बीह करो। ऐ पैगंबर सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम अपने परवरदिगार जलील शान के नाम की तस्बीह करो, जिसने इंसान को बनाया, फिर उसके आज़ा को दुरुस्त किया और जिसने उसका अंदाज़ा ठहराया, फिर इसको रास्ता बताया और जिसने चारा उगाया, फिर इसको सियाह कोड़ा कर दिया। हम तुम्हें पढ़ाएंगे कि तुम फरामोश ना कर सकोगे, मगर जो खुदा चाहे वो खुली बात को भी जानता है और छुपी को भी। सदक़ल्लाहुल अलीयुल अज़ीम। Now I request Janab Ghufraan Sahab to take the mic. Ghufraan Sahab. Ghufraan Sahab.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Assalamu alaikum. Is my voice audible?
Wa alaikum assalam. Yes, audible, sir.
Very good. Alhamdulillah. So we have been discussing since the last few weeks the key performance indicators or parameters of evaluation of teachers. And we'll continue with that process today, inshallah. So we looked at many different parameters till now. One of the parameters, one of the parameters of an effective teacher is appropriate usage of the whiteboard. How does the teacher use the whiteboard? This is also one of the things that needs to be observed, that needs to be considered, enhanced, improved. There are certain typical things that a teacher has to do, whether it be whiteboard or blackboard, which is putting in the presence or absence, the attendance on one side of the corner of the board, right? Writing the date, writing the name of the topic, right? These are typical things that the teachers do and they're supposed to do. How is the handwriting? Is it too small or is it too large, right? Is it legible or it is a bad handwriting, right? Whether the teacher writes only on one side of the board and the other side of the classroom students find it difficult to read, or whether the teacher writes it in such a manner that the entire classroom is seeing, whether the teacher stands in front of her own writing and the teacher becomes an obstacle, the students are unable to see, right? Whether the teacher stands in such a manner that the entire class is able to see, right? Sometimes the board has to be divided into two. So how does she divide the board and how is her handwriting legible or not, right? Whether when she writes, her letters are in order or not, or whether the letters are up and down, right? Sometimes we write and the letters are up and down, right? The letters should be in one line, right? That is the hallmark of a good handwriting. These are things that the teacher should be cognizant of, should be careful of. Whether the teacher uses the boards, the whiteboard or the blackboard, effectively in terms of using graphic organizers, right? How does she organize her data, her ideas, her concepts on the board while explaining, while conducting some activity, right? While giving some notes to write down. So these are things that have to be taken into consideration. Another important parameter that the teacher has to take into consideration is whether she is able to move from, whether she is able to take the students along from their current performance to their optimal potential, right? Because that is the key thing that the teacher has to do in the classroom. She has to take the students from their current level to their optimal potential, or whether the teacher day in and day out in every semester, the level of the students remains the same. If that is the case, then the teacher has to improve a lot, because the students' understanding of the subject, their performance, their results, everything has to improve with every passing session, with every passing week and month, right? The students' liking for that subject, understanding of that subject, results in that subject, performance in that subject has to improve. So the teacher has to show the capability of bridging the gap. This is also important. Another important thing that the teacher must do is inclusivity, engaging all the students. Whether this teacher is engaging all the students or not is also an important aspect of education. Many a times teachers just talk to students who are sitting in front of them, just 3, 4, 5, 10 students who are sitting in front of them. Or teachers look only at one part of the classroom and the other part of the classroom goes unnoticed. Or the teacher is only catering to a few 4, 5 students who are bright students who are giving her responses. And 70%, 80%, 90% of the classroom is not being included in the process of teaching. This is something that has to be worked on. So inclusivity of the entire classroom, of all students in the classroom, engaging all the students is of critical importance, right? Engaging all the students is very important. Engagement is an important skill that the teacher should learn, engaging with all the students. Then engaging how, this is the next area of expertise that the teacher should have, engaging in a manner wherein it includes all levels of the students, which means she has got to indulge in differentiated instruction, right? Because the different students will have different skill sets, different natures, different characters. So the teacher should understand what is this whole funda of differentiation. Then the teacher should know the learner. She should be able to assess the learner and adjust the assignments, the questioning, the curriculum approach, the way she's teaching, everything according to the kind of students that she is teaching. And this differentiation based on the skills and the nature of learners is something that the teacher has to do effectively. We have learned about multiple intelligence theory. Many of the teachers must have known of this. So the ability to teach according to the different levels of the students, right? There will be students who learn in the auditory manner. There would be students who learn in a visual manner. There will be students who learn in a rhythmic manner, right? There will be students who learn in a kinesthetic manner. All of these kinds of learning should be incorporated. Kinds of teaching should be incorporated in the teaching and learning process, right? This is important. And this kind of differentiation is an essential component of the teacher's expertise, right? Say for an instance, there is a not so sharp student in your class and there is a very sharp student in your class. If whether she is able to cater to the needs of all of these kinds of students, whether the teacher is able to take into cognizance the needs of all of these students, because the weaker student would need extra support. The sharp student, the gifted student would need extra work so that the student doesn't become a nuisance in the classroom, right? How to utilize the talent of the gifted student, whether the teacher does that or not. Now, these are things that the teacher has to be aware of, right? Whether she effectively deals with behaviorally difficult students, This is something that she has to take into consideration. Or whether she confronts the behaviorally difficult students, or whether she takes them into confidence, she touches their heart, she moves their heart, and she brings about an internal reformation rather than a reformation based on punishments. Now, these are things that the teacher should be able to do. Whether the teacher is capable in effectively dealing with the developmental disorder students, there would be students with autism, would be students with hyperactivity disorder. There would be different kinds of students with different kinds of learning disabilities. Whether the teacher is able to take them on board while teaching or not, whether she's catering to their needs or not, or they are left out in the process of teaching and learning. This is something that the teacher has to take into consideration. Now, I talked about gifted students, right? What do you do with the gifted students? What can we do? We can give them some work to do. Maybe if they complete the work in the classroom, now they can potentially create trouble in the classroom. They would be troublemakers. They would have nuisance value because they have free time at hand. So what can we make them do? Their special skills can be utilized for peer learning, peer teaching. Make them teach other students, pair them with other students who have not yet understood well enough. Or make the students write an essay, or write a story, draw something, right? Do something, right, which keep them involved. Give them group D sums. A maths teacher gave, which are the difficult sums, problem sums to solve. Keep them involved. This is important, right? What can be done with the weaker student? The weaker student, the teacher can give extra support. She can go around, be a supportive teacher, right? Ask their problems, their difficulties, try to understand where they're getting stuck, right? What they have not understood. Give them repeat explanation, give them personal attention, right? So different students with different skills have to be touched, have to be taken into consideration. Their needs have to be taken into consideration. This is an important parameter of an effective teacher. Now, another important parameter of an effective teacher is effective usage of language. How do you use language? Whether the teacher is using colloquial language, slang language, right, unparliamentary language, this is something that has to be taken into consideration, right? ये बहुत important है. What kind of language? The language of a teacher should be refined, polished, befitting a teacher, right? She can't afford to use slang language. This is something that the teacher has to take into consideration, right? Language is important because that's what the students will pick up. If you speak in a slang manner, the students will start speaking in a slang manner as well, right? In Urdu, they say in Bombay, some of the people in Bombay, they use very poor language. They say tere ko, mere ko, te ko, me ko. That's this kind of language. They would hardly use aap ko, right? This happens in a city like Bombay. That's what I experienced. So the language, whichever language you're using, whether Tamil, whether Urdu, whether English, speak in a language that is befitting a teacher, right? Don't use language that is slang. This is important. Appropriate usage of language, especially if in your school, it's an English medium school, other than Tamil teachers, speak English. If it's an English medium school, many times it's an English medium school, but the teachers in the classroom, they only speak Tamil or only speak Kannada or only speak Urdu. Nobody speaking English. So how is it an English medium school then? Right? So your language is of critical importance. Then When it comes to language, it's not just the words that you utter. Your body language matters, your facial expressions matter. Right? How does the teacher utilize her body, her face, her eyes in expressing herself? Is she expressive enough? Does she do voice modulation? Or she only speaks the entire class, the entire half an hour she's speaking at the same pitch, no voice modulation. The voice never goes up, the voice never comes down. There is no modulation of pitch. Now, this is something that is important. The elements of communication, the tone, the pitch, the volume, the clarity, the rate of speech, all of these have to be taken into consideration if you have got to become an effective teacher. You cannot speak in a very, very high pitch, right? And you've got to vary your pitch. Right? You cannot speak at a very high volume continuously. You've got to be clear in what you're speaking. Your rate of speech cannot be too fast. You cannot speak very quickly, very fast. You shouldn't speak in a very, very slow manner either. Now, these are things, at times you've got to speak fast, at times you have to speak slow, depending upon the content that you're teaching. That also is important. Varying it up, modulating it is also important. You cannot remain in one particular rhythm. Right? This is important. Then another important aspect of an effective teacher is spelling. I have seen, we conduct workshops in different parts of the country. Right? I have seen teachers writing wrong spelling on the board. So at least the subject matter that you're teaching, brush up your spellings. Right? You cannot afford to write wrong spellings on the board. The students will copy the same thing. So getting your own spellings right, that is something important. Right? So we have seen the importance of the communication skills, voice modulation, body language, facial expressions, eye contact. So writing of good spellings is also equally important. Right? Now, another important thing that has to be taken into consideration for a teacher to become an effective teacher is whether the teacher is promoting the student-teacher communication and student-to-student communication. Now, these are important aspects, right? Whether the teacher is doing monologue or dialogue, whether there is an interaction or only the teacher speaks, and whether the teacher conducts activities in the classroom and includes peer learning in the process in such a manner that the student-to-student communication should also be there in the classroom, not only student-to-teacher communication. Right? Student-student communication in group work, right? In assignments and activities within the classroom. This enhances the process of teaching and learning. Right? Now, another important thing that the teacher should be cognizant of is using of teaching aids. The teacher must use teaching aids. In every subject, it is applicable. Right? She can come up with flashcards, she can use what do we call technological teaching aids, like she can use videos, she can use clip art, she can use PowerPoint presentation, she can use photographs, whatever, right? She can use some games that are available, right? Using of technology in education, that's another thing that the teacher should, an effective teacher should use in today's classroom, right? Say, for an instance, you've got to teach atomic structure. It is difficult to teach atomic structure in a 2D format. Your textbook has an atomic structure in a 2D format. But if you're showing a clip, if you're showing a video of how the atomic structure is, it becomes much more effective. Why? Because the video will be 3D, three-dimensional, because the electrons don't move around the nucleus in a 2D format. they are moving in a 3D format, and the different orbital movement of the electrons can be best understood in a 3D depiction. So whether the teacher is using teaching aids, technological aids in the process of teaching or not, this also is an important aspect to be considered. Then another aspect is idea organizers, which is graphic organizers. Whether the teacher is using these graphic organizers or not, right? Like mind map, like persuasion maps, like a matrix of ideas, like Venn diagrams, right? Like pie charts, like fishbone diagrams, like different aspects that are covered in a diagram where you can draw X and Y axis, right? And you can depict the different aspects of the ideas that you're representing, right? Maybe you can have a, what is that called as, a diagram where you're representing, right, two aspects of a particular theme on two sides of the board, right? And there is a clash of these ideas. It can happen. You can use that in history. You can even use that in science, right? So all of these different graphic mind maps, right, which are very famous, right? So these are different graphic organizers, idea organizers, which the teacher should use for summarizing, right? For recap, right? For revision, right? When she conducts revision need not be only conducted orally, right? These graphic organizers are a potent tool for explanation, and especially a potent tool for summarizing and recapping and revision, right? So whether the teacher summarizes the content is also an important aspect to be taken into consideration. Whether she recaps the next day what she has done in the previous session, whether she conducts revision or not, right, of the content once the content is over before the examination. All of these things are important aspects for an effective teacher, right? And there are many more. We'll continue next week, inshallah ta'ala. We are already at 7 a.m. Okay. Jazakumullahu khair. Wa akhiru dawana alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.
Jazakallah. 5 minutes late only you started, so you could have taken 5 minutes more.